odd little bit here and there. Just adds that little bit of interest. So that's that bit done. Now I'm going to add, I know I'd said I don't do this, but I'm going to. I'm going to add a little bit of this into the, in fact, we need a little bit more, and this was the Gorgon hide. So I'm just going to give the bottle a bit of a shake, because, well, it needs it. And we'll add some more up here, because I may need it again for the next one. You never know. I'm going to take some out of the into here and make it paler still. And now we can go, now we can spend our time along the higher reaches of the mini and pick out just a little bit of the few of the high spots. Not going overboard with it, because let's face it, it's what you call it. It doesn't need a great deal doing to this now. We're just picking out areas that would get a little more, we'll see a little more light all down the back. We'll just get a little dot of this just to make it stand out. There we go. And we'll just touch here and there on some other areas where we think a little bit more of a highlight is needed. There we go. Just that. There, down there, down there. And that will do fine. So that's it for this character almost. I'm not doing much more on him, but I am making sure that his face is highlighted, even though it's in shadow. I like having the face being a little more highlighted than everywhere else. There we are. And finally, the last bit of highlighting is to be done on the ring attire, which is this brighter mix of the Evil Sun Scarlet and what's the yellow colour we used? Flash Gitch Yellow. And again, this is not going to be a big, large amount of the it's just going to just signify areas that are raised slightly, and that will do. So there we are, that is the zombie. He's done. Which one might? No, I won't. Yes, I will. I didn't do that zombie terribly, that eye terribly well, so I'm going to go back into the Nurgling Green, and I'm going to use this straight out of the pot with a very damp brush, and I'm just going to go under. Yeah, in fact I want to paint it all in again. paint it all in again and add a little bit more of the wash, and we'll come back to that at a later date, because as I said, we've moved on from this guy now. This is how he looks at the moment, but what I want to do is, as I said, just make sure the eye is looking good. Alright, so I'm going to take the wash now. I'm hoping that eye is dried. He seems to have. A dry brush. There we are. That's that done. So the wash is added, and now we just need to wait until that's dried. And while we're doing that, we'll start on your man here. Now we have a werewolf. What we need to do is work out what colour we want him. He has a knee pad that is stretched to his mould into his skin. The irritating thing now is I can't find my knife, because I've noticed a couple of areas, there it is, that needs to be dealt with, such as here and there. They're not brilliant minis, as I've mentioned before, so I'm not too caught up with cleaning every aspect. But where there is quite prominent areas, especially when they can be sorted, I will do it as best as I can. But as I say, at the moment with me actually priming this and not noticing until now, never mind. Right, we are going to paint this fella. I want a fairly big brush for him because he's a fairly big fella, and we're going to start off with, what colour do we want him? Do we want him brown? Do we want him black? I'm going to go with brown, dark brown. So we want, not that one, good enough black on the go. Let's get some brown. So Rhinox hide is the colour we're going to be using for him. I'll put some of this out. And I just realised I'm using one of my painting brushes to apply this to the palette, not the brush that I usually use. I'm getting sloppy, but we're going to go over all of his skin tone, on the fur, anything that isn't clothing, let's put it that way. So there we are. That's that bit done. Oops, little bit on the tail that I need to sort out, which is one of those pin the neck areas that you can't get at. Sometimes I think it might have been better just painting this on the sprue. But hey ho, never mind. Now if we need to, we can always go back and touch up again later on. Hopefully I won't need to. Just clean off the brush now, make sure all the brown is out of it. There we are. And we'll move over to, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the wraps and everything. Is the shots. The shots look as though they are dry, so let's do the shots before we do anything else. And as per usual for this casino, the shots are going to be red, and I've gone into the wrong red. Anyway, so if you use a brush full of water and go over what you've just painted, you can quite literally near enough correct it yourself. This is the colour I wanted, Wazdaka Red. I'm going to pop a bit more out, and that Screamer Pink. Oh, we'll do this right eventually. What have I done with the Wazdaka Red? What have I done with the Wazdaka Red? So, okay, so I've got Screamer Pink on there at the moment, so let's brush that off and get it back into the Wazdaka Red. You don't need a great deal. But we obviously need some. And we can go straight over this scarlet because it's a darker red. Because the one I actually put on was the Evil Sun Scarlet. Now I'm being very, very careful in where I'm applying this because I don't want any of it going onto the brown. I'm trying to show you what I'm doing and getting it in an awkward position for me painting because the camera is actually pointing at a different angle than I'm looking at it. I know I've got some of this red on the brown already. There will be some areas where, in order for me to see where I'm painting, I'm going to have to take it out of camera shots, so I apologise about that beforehand, but it's not something I can help. So if I'm painting down there, I'm going to have to put it like that so I can see it, and you're not going to be able to. So let's get that out of the way first while I'm in this position. I don't know whether you can see that or not. Not quite, but there we are. And run this all over the shorts, trunks, whatever you want to call it. I think they call them trunks in wrestling, don't they? Thinking back to my days of watching WWF. Before it became WWE. Stopped watching it shortly after it became WWE, I believe, if I remember rightly. It started getting silly. Well, it stopped relying on silly storylines rather. They're the things I used to enjoy about it because it was silly. But it just became... It stopped being silly in a good way and became silly in a bad way. If you get me drift. I used to like it when it was DX and Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, and Shawn Michaels and all them. We didn't get to see it over here when it was like the real heyday of American wrestling. People like the Ultimate Warrior and that. It wasn't as big over here then. At least as far as I know, it wasn't. And there was a few people who were fans of it then, over here, but I think it was more of a niche market, as it were. But now we got to the stage in the 90s and 90s where everybody was going on about it. And I must admit I did enjoy it. I was a Stone Cold Steve Austin fan. I said Stone Cold Steve Austin, DX, and The Undertaker were my favourite wrestlers. But so I stopped watching WWE ages ago, and then I got turned on to TNA wrestling, and I quite enjoyed that for a while. But then they started doing this Aces and Eights storyline, and I started getting really bored with it, and I've not watched wrestling since, really. I've just lost interest. Well, there we are. I've got more into board games and YouTube and creating stuff rather than actually watching wrestling. So there we are. Now that the brown paint has dried, I can see a few spots where I do need to go back and touch up. It happens because when the paint dries it can shrink a little bit and pull away. But It's nothing that can't be corrected, adjusted rather. I keep saying it's not corrections, it's adjustments. And painting is just a long series of adjustments. So we have to go along with what the paint says to do. So we put the paint on a little too thinly, as I say. It can, in certain areas it can shrink, kind of thing, as it dries, and you end up with little spots and patchy areas. Now here I need to be very careful, and down there I need to be very careful. There we are. Got to be careful here as well, because I had noticed with the red that I'd missed some of the brown. I didn't want to go into the brown with the red, so I left it white. There we are. That will do nicely, thank you very much. Again, I'm not too bothered about the raised areas. I'm more bothered about getting paint into the recessed areas. That is the part where we really want this paint. But we need to make sure that all of it is covered anyway, so we get a proper coverage and a uniform look. When we put the highlight colours on. There we are. That's quite possibly the I'll do a little bit more down here, I think. And that is spot on. And that will do nicely, thank you very much. There we are. I don't think there's anywhere else I've missed now. There's a little white spot there. It just needs to be filled in. There we are. So that's what we have so far.